Good day, and welcome to a demo of the latest Fraxses release, Turaco. I'm Madeleine Peerless, the COO of the Intenda Group, and together with Jaco van Niekerk, our Group CTO, we are very excited to take you on a journey through our latest release of Fraxses, a metadata platform that provides you with advanced automation, infinite scalability, and assists users to engage directly with their data. In the next 30 minutes, we'll explore key features of Turaco and demonstrate a telco use case to show you what can be achieved in very little time. If you are new to the world of Fraxses and would like to learn more, please follow us on LinkedIn or visit our website at intenda.tech, where you'll find more videos and resources related to Fraxses. So, without further ado, Jaco, the stage is yours.
Welcome everybody to our demonstration of our latest release of Fraxses called Turaco. We're very excited to show you the enhancements that we've made to the platform. One of the big enhancements that we have focused on for this release is the reskinning of the UI to make the flow and look much better and easier from a user experience. We've also focused on governance around data, and especially have been focusing around version control and also security within the platform. So what I'll do is I'll actually now just share the demonstration. So as an entry, we've got different options into the platform. Where we're going to start is what we call Legos, where we actually configure all the different data sources and model with the data objects. So if one looks on the left-hand side, we've got two menu options. Where I'm going to start is with the security. If we actually click on the security, we've got the two main items called account management, and under that, where one can actually manage your security and organizations and roles within the platform. If I actually click on the organizations, this will actually bring up the different organizations within the platform. To note here is that the platform is multi-tenant, so you can actually have multiple organizations loaded into the platform. If I actually can go, I can actually go and look at some information within the organization and how it was created. And from there, I can also go and look at the management of the roles. So for this organization, there's quite a lot of roles that is loaded to it. But I can actually go and remove or add organizations within roles within this organization. From here, if one actually goes to roles, you'll be able to see all the roles that's been loaded into the system. And one of the main features that we've added to the platform is this menu access. So what this allows is for security per menu option within the platform. If I actually click on it, one can now actually go and click on the organization and then actually see the menu structure that's on the right-hand side. And actually for this role, then give different access to different roles and what they can actually do. So this now really segregates role management and where people can add data sources, they can actually configure data objects, or just maybe do caching within a data object. So really low-level security management within the platform. But now that we've went through the security, the main part of the platform is Legos. And where we will start is with data objects, data sources, where actually one can connect to any data source that's out in the ether. We support over 230 odd data sources that are be that API calls or be that databases or NoSQL or even all file types of data sources that are out there. So what we're going to look at today is a telco data set. And what I've done is I've actually, within this data source called Chinook, if I click on it, I can go and look at its configurations. And within the configurations is telling me just a high-level description, a code that I've given to this data source, and obviously what type that data source is. If I go and look at its parameters, depending on the data source I'm connecting to, in this instance, it's MS SQL, it will ask me where the server is, the port, the database, username and passwords for that database. From here, I can actually go and look at its entities. So entities within it, in this context, is all the tables that we have discovered automatically within that database. And the tables we'll be working with today is the telco contract and telco customer. So if we actually click on one of these, I can go and click and go and view its attributes, and we will be able to see which fields are or have been discovered within this data source. From here, I can then also go and have a look at its relationships, and we will be able to see that it's actually picked up that this customer is linked to a table called contract. So this is just automatically discovered, and it makes life easier when actually one models with the data. But to just take this further, I'm going to go back to data sources. And I have received a CSV file that's got churn data for telco customers. And this sits in an Azure blob store and a CSV file. So if I actually just go to the location of this file, what I'll do is I'll actually link directly to it so that you can view what's actually in that file. So I'm going to go to the CSV file that's sitting in Azure, and I'll be able to open this file to actually just see what's in that. So what we'll see is we've got the actual customer ID, has he churned, the churn value, and then a reason for churn. Ultimately, that sits within this file. So the whole idea is to be able to build data objects off this data and combine it with my internal data sources that I have in the Chinook database. So where we start is we can go and create a data source because I don't have a link to it as yet. And I'm going to call this is going to be my telco churn data source. That's going to be the CSV file with churn data as a description. And then I can choose the actual data source type I'm after. So in this instance, it's a CSV file. And then I can say save and continue. What it will then ask me, because it's picked up it's a CSV file, is where is the CSV file? This could be a folder or direct to the file that I'm going to do in this instance, and then any formatting that is in that file. So your delimited types, how deep I want to scan, if I have a schema already defined for it, I can supply it and so forth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the precise file we pointed to and say that's the one I want to actually connect to. I can then say save and define entities. In this instance, we want to discover everything. So for instance, if one connects to a folder in this instance, and there's multiple CSV files in there, this will discover all those files for you and then create them as data entities. But if I now go and say save and discover, what this will now do is it will now go to the Azure Blob Store, obviously retrieve the CSV file and then analyze it to actually see what's within that file. So we'll see from the status of the discovery, it's already discovered it and which date it discovered that. So now that I've already discovered that, I can choose this data source. I can go and view its entities, and we will it's now picked up the CSV file as a single entity. I can then go and look at its attributes, and we'll be able to see, as we saw on the CSV file, these are the fields it's picked up, and these are from the algorithm it's picked up the data types that were in that file. Now that I've discovered all this, I can now actually go and model with this data. So if one goes to the object builder, I can then go here and start searching for everything that is telco. So I'm interested in everything that's telco related. For instance, the two tables that was picked up within the SQL database, and then also the CSV file. So from here, what I can start doing is building data objects or modeling with this information. So it might be that someone's asked me now, well, they want to have access to the CSV file, that data set, and then also a combination of the customer and contract information. So what's new within the platform is now the whole governance around a data object. So what I'll say, I want to go and create a new data object. And I'm going to call this telco customer contract, because what I want to do is combine that or join that information together. And there's this new concept of development role. So I have access to multiple roles, and I can select against which role I want that to be associated with for modeling on this data. And anybody else that's got access to that role can also assist me in building on this data object. So I'm just going to give this a description. This is my customer contract data. And then I've got a few options before I create it. In this instance, I'm going to ask it to push down. And the push down is our algorithm that gets used to actually efficiently query data and the ability to push calculations down to the source for faster retrieval. So I'm going to choose push here and then say save. So what we have is we've got now a blank canvas, and what I'm interested in is I can now pull in any of these entities, but I'm interested in the customer entity, for instance, and it will show me all the fields that are available there. And because I've pulled this in, it's popped up what we call a linked object. So uh, if you remember, when we actually looked at the attributes and the relationships, it said this is related to the actual contract entity, and it's now showing that out for me. So I don't have to go and know what is linked to it and so forth. The system will actually suggest a linkage for me. I can then pull that in, and that will then obviously now create a join for me because it's picked up that relationship, and I can go and edit those joins to what I want it to be. In this case, I want it to be an inner join. I can then go from here and then select the actual fields I'm interested in. So let's just make this a bit bigger. I'm going to go to customer ID that I'm interested in. I may be interested in the city and the zip code, interested in the gender. And then from here, I'm interested in 10-year months. And then let's just choose monthly charges. Okay. So this is now a data object that I've built that has been requested for me to build. I can go here and validate it. And what validation is going to do for me is just going to validate that everything is fine. A green box jumps up at me. And also from a data analyst perspective, I can see what the federated query looks like within the Fraxses platform. And then also, because it's picked up, it's connecting to SQL Server, the actual version of SQL used to actually query against that underlying database. So now I'm happy with my data object here. But I've also been requested to obviously build information around the CSV file that I have. So what I can do and what makes this environment nice and is also new is you can actually work with multiple objects at the same time. So I can go and create a new one here and say, I'm going to create a telco churn data object. Once again, I'm going to select the development role I'm interested in. I'm going to say this is my churn data, and I can say save. This will now create another blank canvas for me that I can obviously now go and pull in other entities. In this instance, the CSV file that I'm pulling in. I can then obviously select the fields I'm interested in here. So for this instance, I'm going to select all of them, and I can validate it to see that I'm happy, that everything can connect, and we can query it. And then obviously I can run it from here as a sample to see that I'm happy with everything that's in there. Okay. So now that I've got my two data objects, we'll see it's sitting in this workspace where everybody else that's got access to that group can also work on this. But I can now go and request to publish these data objects. So I'm going to say request to publish. It will tell me where I can preview, look at the configuration, and validate it from the screen before I actually send it for approval. But I'll just say this is as requested, and then save that. And what we'll see is there's another workspace that pops up that says pending approval, where that object is now popped into. So what's happening is I am a developer, and I am an owner of data. So I've got the ability to create a data object, but also approve it. In normal enterprise, you'd usually have your developer, and then when he is finished with a request for publish, the owner will be notified. They can log in and actually go and preview this uh, request. So what they'll look at and say, okay, they've got the right to approve this, but they can also quickly just go and look and make sure that they're happy with everything. So for instance, they can go and preview the data that's within here. They can go and look at any configurations in here. So its push has been chosen. Is there any caching that's been set up against it? What's the details and so forth? So these are all the fields that are within it. And then we can also go and look at pedigree, for instance. So he can open this up and say, okay, it comes from this telco contract and customer that's joined together, ending up into the object that I want it to be. If he's happy with that, he can then say approve. And what this will do is it will give me a publication report. So the publication report, once again, is just the same screen that was an approval that I can go and view, obviously, everything again if I want to. And also, I can go and download the metadata. And downloading the metadata, what it does, it creates a zip file with all the metadata in it so that I can go and put it into a version control system to maybe move to a production system if I'm happy with that, or upload it into another Fraxses instance somewhere. Okay. We will also now see this is popped into the published data objects. And what that means, it's available for query for external consumption through reporting or machine learning algorithm and so forth. But what I still have left is I've got this my CSV file that I also need to push through the publish state. So I'm just going to go through the same that I did previous and say this is as requested. And then save that. And what we'll do is it will pop in for pending for approval. I can once again go and review it. If I'm happy with everything, I can then just say approve. And once again, we get the publication report. I can download the metadata, and we'll see we've got 2 objects that are now available for consumption. But as it goes further, for instance, maybe my report writer or my data scientist is now requesting, well, I want this. It's all great that we've got these 2 objects with my churn data and so forth, but there's certain calculations they might want in my customer contract, and they want the churn data to be joined up against my contract data that's sitting in my SQL database. So what we can go do from here is we can then obviously go and create a new data object. And I'm just going to call this telco all because I'm going to join all the information together. Once again, push it into the development role from a governance perspective and just say this is my joined data. And then save that. And we will now have a blank canvas once again that we can model with. But now what we want to do is actually model with my objects I've just created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in my telco customer that I've just created, and I'm going to pull in my telco churn. And we'll be able to see, well, I don't have a relationship here, but I've got the customer IDs where I can then say, well, I want to actually relate them. I can once again choose the type of join I'm interested in and then save that. But also, while I'm working on this, my data scientist said that he wants also an alteration on the telco contract side, and he wanted to come through on this object I'm building now. For instance, he said he wants to have a concatenation of the zip code and the city within the telco customer contract. So what I can actually go and do from here is say, well, let's go and look. Let's just choose. Obviously, I want customer ID in there. I want, let's just select everything in there. And I want my churn value, churn reason. But I am missing a field in here or calculation that has to be done. So what I can actually go and do is if I say modify here, what it will do is it will pop up a lineage for me to say, well, this is what you're building currently. This is here, and here I've been requested to actually add a calculation into it. So I can actually go from this view and say, well, let's check this out. I want to check this out, and I want to say, well, once again, to which group. I've only got one version, so I can obviously choose any versions if there were multiples, and I can then say save. And what this will then do is we'll check it out, and we'll see it in the workspace there. I can close this and actually go and say, well, let's modify this object here. So we can now work with both data objects. This one is actually this one in an edit mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a field here or calculation as been requested. So let's go and create this. I'm going to call it zip city. I'm going to alias it the same. I'm just going to say this is a concat of zip and city. And then I'm going to go and build a calculation and expression in this instance. So we've got loads of calculations available to us, over 100 calculations. We support SQL 99 functions within the platform, but I can just search here and then pull it in and it will tell me what that looks like. So what I've been requested to do is say, okay, I want to concat the zip code and I want to concat the city. And then I can also go and edit the calculation if I want to at the bottom here, just by typing, maybe I want to have a space between that, for instance. I can apply that. I just need to give it a final data type. In this instance, I want it to be a varchar, and then I can save that. That's now been created. I'm just going to put it in the last sequence of the order of the fields, and I can then close this here. I can then validate it once again just to check that this object works fine as expected. And if I run it, we'll be able to see here's my zip city concatenation that I've done on the actual data object. Now, because I've made a change here, everything is happening in live, and we know that this is dependent on that one. If I actually click on it, I can now go and see zip city has appeared there. So I've now been able to edit the underlying data object that has been requested and also add it onto this data object. And I'll just add that ultimately onto there. So this just shows how you can actually work with multiple data objects, also down the hierarchy. That makes this extremely powerful. But now that I've got this data object, there's additional things that I might want to transform in here, or calculations and so forth. For instance, I've got monthly charges that is in a data type of real, but I want to work with decimals, for instance. So I can actually go to the fields here once again, choose the monthly charges, the expression, and then say, well, let's cast this. I want this to be cast to a decimal. If we actually now go and look for monthly charges, that's there. I can say that's what I want to cast. I can apply it, and that will now cast that to a decimal for me. Additionally, I've been asked by my analytical team that's going to do a report on this, that they want quite an advanced analytical function on this. So what I'll do is I'll create a average 10-year months. It's not 10-year months. Once again, I'll call it the same in the alias, and then I'll go and build an expression. So I'm going to look for the average functions. In this instance, I'm after the windowing function. That is an advanced analytical function. And what I want to actually do here is say I want to do an average over my tenure months that I have in my SQL database, but I want to partition it over my reason that it's coming from the CSV file that's sitting in Azure. And I can then say, okay, I'm happy with that function. One doesn't have to worry here about the calculations or any transformations that one can do within a certain data source. The platform will take care of it automatically. So when I've done my calculation, I can then go and say this needs to be a decimal. I can save that. And at the end of this, once again, I want to have it in order 10 within the data object. When I close this, I can then validate this. It will come back green. Once again, for the data analyst, they can see what the platform has come up with the SQL statement. And then I can obviously run this. So what this is now doing, it's in real time, obviously going to the SQL database and in real time to the CSV file that's sitting in Azure, joining the data for me together, and then obviously showing me the results. So here's my tenure months that it's come up with. Here's my zip city calculation. That's a calculation. The churn reason that comes from the actual CSV file. And then obviously all the others, gender, zip code, that's coming from our SQL Server database. Now that I finally join everything together, I can request to publish this. So what this will now come up with and say, well, you've created this telco all, and these are all the other data objects that are related or in the dependency of creating this data object. And we'll see, we went and altered this customer contract one, and that's sitting in a created, and the telco all that's sitting in a created. But for us to publish this, we also have to publish the underlying change that's happened. So this is what's actually just being shown to us. So I'll just say as requested again, and then save that. And what will happen, we'll actually see both data objects now move into a pending approval. But I can just choose the upper one and say I want to review it. And it says, okay, there's two data objects that have to be approved here. Once again, I can go and preview it, say, okay, what does that look like? I'm happy with what's returned there. That will just load. Got all the calculations in I've requested, like zip city and my average tenure. And then also we can go and look at the underlying one that's now sitting in version 2. Look at its more information. So this is your whole version control, what has changed and so forth. So you can see this is the one that's published currently and what it looks like. And this is the one I want to go and publish now. And I can go and see, okay, we've got zip city that's been added to it. So everything is traceable and what has changed when, and you can compare it to different versions within the platform. So now that I'm happy with this, I can approve this. And as soon as I've approved this, it will then once again give me the publication report. I can download the metadata, but it's now in a published state for consumption. Okay, I'm just going to close these up here. Now, from here, one obviously wants to go and look at some data pedigree. So you can trace everything that's happened. So I can always go and look at this upper data object and see, okay, there's calculations that have happened here. They are derived from the telco churn being the CSV, the data object I built that's on the SQL database, and then obviously the underlying entities that are related to it. I can go and click on the calculations, and it will actually show me the calculation that's been done here, which fields were involved within it, and also where did it actually come from the underlying entity. And you can also obviously trace, if I want to click the churn value here, it will show me it came from the CSV file, it's used here, and once again, it comes from, it's used within the upper object. I can change it from looking at references, so there's no references upwards of this, or only dependencies. And there's obviously it's just got dependencies. And then the last bit is I can go and look at its metadata that will show me what version this one is looking at, which version it's involved in, and so forth. And then the last thing, these pedigrees can actually get very big. So we've got the capabilities to download this. And then I can obviously go and open this, and we can zoom in and out on this at any level, as small as you want, ultimately through this. Okay. But now that we've actually created and published this object, it's available for reporting or for our data scientist. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to our where we can choose the different applications, and I'm going to go to our Insights application. I'm going to log into it. And what this is going to allow me to do is now obviously report off that data object. So when I open this up, it's just showing me my dashboards that I've got available, what I've chosen to have load as I log in. But I want to go and now create a brand new report of the data objects I've just created. I'm going to choose Fraxses. So what this does, it does a seamless security login to Fraxses. It knows the user who I am and is doing pass-through authentication ultimately. So if I now go and search for data objects, we'll be able to see here's that telco all and churn and customer contract objects I've built. But I'm after the telco all one. And I'm going to say this is my telco view. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to create the analysis. And what this is going to do is connects to Fraxses and then goes and fetches all the metadata around this object I've just built. So it's picked up all the fields that I've selected, and it's also went and looked at, because of the data types being a decimal and so forth, metrics I can use within this report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling in the fields I'm interested in. So this is live now, connecting to Fraxses, that's federating the data in real time and fetching it from the different underlying data sources. So I've chosen customer. I might be interested in gender. I'm definitely interested in the churn reason, for instance, here. I'm interested in the average tenure months being the analytical function that's been chosen. And that's just refreshing in real time. This is picked up that it wants to aggregate it, but I actually want to average it. So this is just constantly pulling data in real time from Fraxses. And I'm now happy with the data I have in here, and I can actually start building a report. So if I go to charts, I can then start pulling in, like, for instance, I want to have the churn reason. And what this will do is it will auto-suggest charts depending on the fields I'm pulling in. I want to have the average tenure months, my vertical axis. And then maybe I want to have gender to define the color for the legend. And this is just really pulling all the information and building a chart for me. What I can see here is that I've got all the reasons, but there's a lot that's under empty. So it's clients that haven't churned. So I want to actually not have that within my data. But I mean, it's easy enough how you would work with Power BI or Tableau to interact with the data as if it's a table within a database, and filter on data and move data and so forth. So what I'm going to do in here is I know I want to filter on the churn value. I want to go and define the value of what I wanted to filter on. So I know that if the churn value is 1, that customer is churned. So if I say submit, what it will do is it will ask Fraxses to go and filter the set for it, and then come back and we'll see we only now have reasons. So it means it's only bringing back all the data where people have churned. And if I actually go back to the chart, we'll be able to see the chart is now taken only into account any customers that have churned. But then just to take it a bit further, and the last bit I want to actually demo, if we go back to Legos and we go to data objects, you want to secure this information, and only certain people are allowed to see certain values and also certain data ultimately. So I can go and now search for my telco all one that I've just been busy with. I can go to permissions, and the permissions say these are all the the roles within the system. They've got read access to it, update, delete access, or even create. But what I want to go and do is I want to go and limit attribute access. So what this does, all the attributes that are on the data object, also which roles and organizations are linked to it. So I'm going to look for customer because I'm interested in the customer ID. I'm logged in as this admin at Fraxses. And what I want to say is that if I view the data through a report or any other system, I don't want myself to see the actual customer ID. I want to mask it, and it should only show me the last four chars ending of that customer ID. So if I actually go back to this report and we just go and look at the data, this happens in real time. As I make those changes, those policies get updated. So when I query it again, we'll be able to see customer ID has now been masked out, for instance. Additional to this, maybe let's add city to this data. So we can just have a look at what cities there are. So that's loaded all the cities. And I might say, well, okay, cool. I've now masked the customer ID, but myself, I only deal with Los Angeles data. So I'm only allowed to see Los Angeles data. So if I go back to the Legos, I can then go to row filter, for instance. Let's go and look for the city field. And then I can say, okay, for the admin at Fraxses, the city field, he's only allowed to see where it's Los Angeles. So as soon as that's updated and I actually go back to this data, if I just refresh it, what will happen is I will now only be able to see where the city is Los Angeles. So we'll see here's all the data, but it's only related to Los Angeles that I'm allowed to see. And once again, if I go to the chart, that chart will filter on my security role depending on who I am, and only showing that data. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that. It was really to show how easy it is to go from multiple data sources, govern that data, and how you publish it and distribute it, and how quick it is to get into reporting on that information ultimately. Thank you.